Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us for a midweek edition of Last Word on Spurs, where unfortunately it's that time of the season now where there is no games to review. Spurs out of all the cups, but of course in the midst of a real top four battle that the pressure just seems to be increasing day by day, game by game. If you're listening to the show for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on Audio Boom, we're across a range of different audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And I'm joined by three great returning guests on the Last Word on Spurs. The man bottom left of my screen, you're asking, where's he been? Where's he been? Due to games this season, it's been tricky, but we've finally found a way to get him on. Midweek is the key. We've got the brilliant Chris Cowlin on from his wonderful YouTube channel. Chris, lovely to have you here. How are you?
Lovely to be back, Rick. Thanks so much for having me on, and great to be back on the show with Emma and Mitch this time. And looking forward to talking about lots of things Tottenham Hotspur, and hopefully we can get that top four spot.
Fingers crossed. I bet you weren't looking forward to talking about 10:15 last night, Chris. Oh, the football this season, the nature of it, just this roller coaster of top four all the time, up and down, twists and turns. As Chris said there, we're delighted to be also joined by two great returning guests, the Last One on Spurs. From Football London, we've got the brilliant Emma DeDuve with us. Emma, love to have you back on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Just echo what Chris said. Good to be back on. Never a dull day. Writing about Tottenham, supporting Tottenham. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Oh, man, fantastic. And also pleased to bring this man back. Now, the last time he was on, Chris got a shock when he just came into the green room. He heard the words Europa Conference League and nearly ran back out. We're glad to say we've managed to find him. We've brought him back into the room. We've got the brilliant artist, Michee, joining us. Michee, lovely to have you back on. You survived the Conference League. You should get a medal for that one. How are you?
No, glad to be back on, man. Literally, like Emma said, just to echo what everyone else said, happy to be back on. And yeah, just exciting times.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Exciting times. A real top four battle that we find ourselves in, which only increased with pressure last night. Chris, let's come over to you to start the show. Arsenal's win up at Stamford Bridge has really heightened the pressure on this top four battle. It does mean now that Arsenal are level on points with Spurs once again, with 6 games remaining for both clubs. Chris, how do you see this battle for the top four?
Here we go. I'll tell you what, some of Arsenal's results recently, who could have predicted them? Who could have predicted last night? Who could have predicted them losing at Crystal Palace 3-0 a couple of weeks ago? But the Premier League at the moment is so unpredictable. Of course, who would have predicted our result against Brighton, having done so well in previous games, scoring lots of goals? It's going to be very, very hard. Of course, we've got a much better goal difference than our North London rivals at the moment, but we've got 6 very, very tough games coming up. I really don't know how to call it, because you think that Spurs are going to turn up against teams like Brighton, that we should have won. And Antonio Conte rightly said, if you can't win the game, then don't lose the game, because every single point is going to be vital come the end of the season. I just hope that Antonio Conte and our players now can step up and just get us over that line, because we joke about the Europa Conference League. I went to all of those games. Having gone from Champions League final to then Europa League to then Europa Conference League, it is nowhere near where we want to be. We've got a world-class manager, we've got some fantastic players, and we need to be back in the Champions League, especially with the stadium and the training facilities and everything else we've got. But it's going to be very, very tough, but we've got to get over that line. We've got to put in 6 fantastic performances.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, Chris, I'm sure on your show as well, you've referenced it. We can't even say the word cup final because Spurs don't win cup finals. So we keep saying FA Cup 5th round, 6 of them remaining.
A couple of games ago, I kept saying on my channel, we've got 7 cup finals left. We've got 8 cup finals left. I've stopped saying it because cup finals and Tottenham, It just doesn't go very well. And, of course, I've been to so many of these cup finals where sadly we haven't won. But talking about cups, Pochettino is about to win the league with PSG. Vinicius, on loan with us last season, won a trophy the other day. It's just ridiculous. And I'm sick of seeing former players and managers keep leaving our club, and then within 6 months, a year, they're lifting trophies at other clubs. So I just want to see success at Spurs, and I hope that under Antonio Conte, we're not that far away.
Yeah, totally agree. Emma, let's come out of you. Any surprise for you, Emma, that Arsenal got that win up at Stamford Bridge and we didn't get that favour from Chelsea?
I mean, as you were saying before, Chelsea never do us favours, so it wasn't really surprising. I think I do echo everything Chris said. I think, Tottenham have shown in results and performances this season that, we can put on good performances, we can get good results. And it is just trying to keep that mentality and keep that consistency, that key word that we seem to struggle with. But it is just keeping that consistency in the final 6 games of the season. I think last night and recent results from loads of teams across the league has just shown that nothing can be taken for granted. You can't be complacent. So I think whether last night was expected or not, it's happened, and we've now just got to look forward and just focus on Tottenham's last 6 games and hope the teams around us drop points.
Absolutely. Michee, coming over to you, we're in that situation now where Arsenal can move 3 points clear of Spurs if they beat Man United on Saturday lunchtime, and we're not kicking off until 5:30, obviously UK time. What's your thoughts on that for you, Michee? Do you think Spurs are going to be able to handle that pressure of playing second to Arsenal now, respectively, at the weekend?
I mean, it could work out in our favour, but, in my experience of obviously supporting Tottenham and whatnot, pressure, we don't really do very well under these circumstances. I'm hoping for the best. I feel like Chris said, the team we have, and obviously coming up against Brentford, and even with Eriksen, it will be an emotional game. But I feel like, I'm quite confident at the same time. I feel like we can come away with a win, and it could work in our favour. I mean, if Arsenal lose and we win, then obviously it puts us in pole position. So I'm excited, and I'm quite confident to see how we do.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, where do you sit on this whole pressure thing? Because Spurs, obviously, now they're in that situation where with Arsenal, it feels like the games coming up, Spurs are playing secondary in a lot of those games. I mean, you've been on the channel so many times about Spurs and the way we try and handle pressure and maybe our lack of being able to handle it. Do you have a concern at the way those fixtures are falling in these upcoming weeks?
Well, there's no easy game in the Premier League, is there? The Premier League is so unpredictable at the moment. When you see some of the results in the last few weeks, I'm sure that that top 4 race in these remaining 6 games are going to change around quite a lot in the next few weeks, again and again. But how many times have we said on this channel, under Pochettino, under Jose Mourinho, now under Antonio Conte, we always sit here, really, big smiles on our faces, thinking that we've turned the corner and thinking that the trophies are coming and thinking that, success is on its way. And then, things happen. Things just happen to Tottenham. Many people, including our good friend Anthony Costa, says that Tottenham's cursed, so many times. But it is frustrating. But I do believe, Antonio Conte has turned this club around. We jokingly said off air about Nuno Espirito Santo. I can't believe, and I've never known a season, even during COVID, for a season just to drag on so much. I've almost forgotten about Nuno being our manager. It just feels so long ago. But Antonio Conte, he's improved players, he's improved our league position, and most importantly, he's built our expectation to now finish in the Champions League, which he's even said in his presser today. We were nowhere near that a short while ago. So, he's turned this club around, and for us to even be sitting here talking about Champions League, I just think is absolutely remarkable, and he's done a fantastic job so far. And I just think that if he is backed in the right way, he will bring success. And I know I'm going to say that an awful lot on this channel tonight, but I just fully back Antonio Conte. Everything he's trying to do, everything he's done so far, very, very impressed with our boss.
Yeah, and I think you're right there, Chris. And you also consider, when he took over Spurs, they were 9th in the Premier League. Now they've got themselves in a situation where top 4 is achievable. I think many of us are still quite surprised that Spurs find themselves in this situation.
Look, a week or so ago, Matt Doherty being out injured, we were all absolutely devastated. Who would have thought that all of us would have been devastated about a player like him, being out injured for the rest of the season? That's how Antonio Conte has improved players, and it's great to see.
Yeah, no, I must admit with Doherty, I've been quite naive about that. I didn't think it would have the impact that it would. And I look now and think Spurs have got a real issue down that right-hand side. I've thought about the option, maybe would he drop Kulusevski back, but then Kulusevski's been playing so well, apart from obviously the last game. Bergwijn, is that an option? I mean, listen, he was there pretty much under Mourinho where he was made to play such a defensive, rigid role. Maybe that's a potential option. I mean, Emma, before we discuss that, coming over to you, that was a priceless win for Arsenal. It obviously ended a run of 3 successive defeats. For them now, aside from the derby and their 2 fixtures this week, Arsenal still got to play West Ham, Leeds, Newcastle and Everton. Some really tough games in there. But psychologically, how big do you think that win will be for Arsenal in the battle for this top 4 race?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely going to give them a boost. And I think, as you've just said, on paper, they have got some difficult fixtures, as have Tottenham. But I think, they've got those difficult fixtures, but they've just beaten Chelsea. So, they'll probably go into a lot of those with that added confidence, with an added boost. We all know what some momentum can do to a team. And I think, especially because they needed that win as well, I just think it's only going to give them a boost, as much as it pains me to say. But, I do think I've seen some comments as well. Like, we do, Tottenham have to focus on their own fixtures. It's obviously very difficult looking at the teams around you gaining points when we need them to drop them. But I just think, just as people didn't necessarily expect Arsenal to go and win at Stamford Bridge, some of the games that look a bit easier for them, they might drop points at. So I think, as we've said, anything can happen in the Premier League. Recent games from so many teams have shown, we've beaten Man City twice this season. Who expected that? Do you know what I mean? So I think there's still so much football to play. We're going to probably get momentum, hopefully not, but maybe drop points at certain times. You've just got to keep a strong mentality. And I think that's what all the teams are going to do. And we've just got to hope that Tottenham can kind of get over the line.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mitch, come over to you. I mean, we know Spurs, they've got to travel to Brentford on Saturday, and then our remaining games are Leicester, Liverpool, Burnley and Norwich. I mean, you shouldn't ever say it's on paper. They are all winnable games. But as we've seen this week with Spurs, I know Chris is going to probably come back in and tell me as well.
You missed out the North London derby, Rick. You forgot about that.
I wanted to say the ones that are winnable on paper first. I was going to come to Arsenal shortly. But obviously, of course, Arsenal win there as well. Of course, Arsenal win there as well. Listen, there's a tough games to come. Mitch, on paper, and as Chris referenced that London derby as well, with Arsenal, who can forget it, the big crunch game of the season. With what's to come, is top 4 in your eyes still achievable on the back of what's been a damaging week for the club? Obviously, losing to Brighton, then Arsenal getting that result up at Stamford Bridge.
Here's what I'll say. I was so confident that we were going to come away with at least a draw against Brighton, especially because it's Brighton. You know what I mean? No disrespect, but come on. I mean, we're clearly the better team on paper. So when we came away with the loss, I was a bit like, this is going to be harder than I thought. So yeah, like I said, I feel like on paper, yes, we should come away with, majority wins, but at the same time, it's the last stretch of the season. There's a lot of pressure. Players might be tired towards the end of this last set of games, and the North London derby as well. That's going to take a lot out of players mentally as well. So, I'm always hoping for the best. Realistically, I feel like we will lose a couple games. If we're judging off how we come across, how unpredictable, like Chris said, the Premier League is. We could come away with a couple losses, and we could come away with a few wins. But I'll say, I feel like we'll win a few of these games, and a couple other fixtures might surprise us.
Chris, only right to bring you in on that top 4 race. Obviously, you referenced Arsenal very clearly there. How could I ever so much not even mention them? Obviously, which was deliberate, should I say? But Liverpool away, Arsenal obviously at home, Burnley at home for Spurs, then Norwich on the final day. Chris, do you think to yourself, rather than paying attention to each individual fixture now, you have to take each game in isolation? Because I think we've gone past the point now of trying to predict where there's a win, where there's a draw, where there's a defeat. Every game now, in its own right, is, as we say, we don't need to keep using that word cup final, but every game is so vital now.
Well, I think the hardest 2 games out of the 6 are definitely Liverpool away and Arsenal at home. That Arsenal game is going to be so important for so many reasons. But the Liverpool away game, you saw the way that they just, swept Manchester United away the other night, and they just look so good at the moment. And of course, we have a very, very poor record in our history at Anfield, not only in recent history, but our whole history. The Brentford game away this Saturday, I know we're going to be talking about that later, but that is going to be an extremely hard game. They've won 5 out of their last 6 in the Premier League. The Leicester home game, I think, is going to be difficult as well. On paper, And of course, football is never played on paper. And of course, all of us always sit here and say, "Oh, we'll win that one, we'll lose that one, we'll win that one." It's all well and good us, predicting the results, but most of the time we're never right. But when you do look at the fixtures, Burnley at home and Norwich away for the final couple of games, we should win both of those matches. So up until the Arsenal game, it is going to be very, very important. But we really do need to just, as a football club now, focus, because Antonio Conte and the players have got us to this stage where none of us probably felt that we would be anywhere near the Champions League. To get to this, get this far, 6 games to go, it's very, very important. And as I keep saying, we desperately need Champions League. And I want to hear that music in that stadium again very soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Chris, do you have a concern, when that Arsenal game and how it falls, whether Spurs are on level points or, behind on the points against Arsenal in that North London derby? Because I think my fear was going into that game, I don't want to be in a situation where Spurs are behind on the table to Arsenal, where they have to win to almost either level up on points or, like I say, keep within a distance there. That's a big worry to me. I just wanted to be in that situation where we're going to that North London derby above them.
After watching Arsenal demolish Chelsea last night, I feel your worry as well, and I share that worry. I really do. Up until a week or 2 ago, I was fairly confident that we would finish in the top 4, and now I really don't know how to call it. Of course, I'm hoping, wishing, praying that Spurs get over that line, but it does worry me. You're looking at every single fixture. It's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, the top 4 battle will roll on. We are going to go for our first break of the show. For our listeners on audio and taking this break, you're going to hear from Oliver Skipp, who has just signed a new deal with the football club, and that's what we are turning our attention to next. For watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us on an evening where we know there's live Premier League football. Burnley currently leading Southampton by 2-0. So just as Chris said a couple of minutes ago, those should be the easier games on paper. The Burnleys and the Norwiches. Burnley may be fighting for their Premier League survival on those final weeks of the season where they'll need the points, like Spurs also in desperate need. But let's turn our attention to Oliver Skipp, where Spurs were delighted to announce that he signed a new long-term contract with the club until 2027. We know he's still currently recovering from injury. But Emma, to start with you, Oliver Skipp, how good news is this to tie down the Englishman to a new long-term deal with a football club?
Yeah, I think it's great news. Obviously before his injury, I think he was impressing everyone after his successful loan at Norwich. I think, he was playing so well in the middle, and I think sort of more time with Antonio Conte will only do him good. His comments about that he's still in meetings, he's still watching training, so he's obviously still got that desire and that fight. And obviously it must be so frustrating, especially given how young he is as well, to have this injury setback. He was also on Tottenham's Twitch stream last night, and, he was responding to talks about him being the next captain. And I think he also speaks with such maturity. Like, he's only 21, and, I think he shows maturity on the pitch. He shows quality on the pitch. He looks like, to me, that he's been playing in the Premier League for years. And I think, he's only going to improve because of his age, with working with Conte once he's recovered from his injury, hopefully, with the players around him, potential new players as well, I think he's only going to improve. So I think it's great news that he's, signed the new contract and felt like a long time coming.
Yeah, agree. Mitch, coming over to you. So far, he's made 28 appearances in a Spurs shirt. We know they've been fairly limited this season due to the injury he has suffered. How much, Mitch, do you think we've missed him in the middle of that midfield for us?
Yeah, I think we've missed him quite a lot. Going back to what Emma said as well, he plays like such an experienced midfielder, and I feel like having a player like that as well, who's grown up at the club, it is nice as well for the fans to see. And almost at this period in time, you want players like that who've, like I said, grown up at the club. They care for where we finish. I feel like sometimes I might be missing in terms of like the hunger. And when we have players like that are gone, it is a big hit to the team. That's just how I feel on it.
Chris, your thoughts, Oliver Skipp? I know a player that, listen, you've referenced on your channel that you've been so impressed with how quickly he's taken to that Spurs midfield. I think we can arguably say that in the days of Nuno, that was the real one beaming light, that you could see a really good player coming through. He's already been referenced as becoming potentially a captain for the future. How important is that, Chris, for you to see the football club actively going about their work, tying down to a new long-term contract? Clearly a player that is thought a lot of by Antonio Conte.
Well, every single manager that he's played under has referenced him as being a great player, a great individual, and possibly a future captain of our club. But 21 years old, imagine you've already played under Pochettino, Jose Mourinho, and now Antonio Conte. There's not many 21-year-olds that could say that. But it's interesting what Emma said about, it looks like he's been there for years, because I used to watch him back, like in the under-23s, and he burst sort of onto the scene when he was sort of 17 years old. He was playing around players 21, 22, 23, and he looked a cut above the rest, even at 17, playing in those games. He was controlling matches in the centre of the park, absolutely superb. And, for me to now see him in the Premier League, doing so well, and as Michee said as well, we have really missed him this season. Bentancur, of course, has come in the January transfer window, but, Skippy has been absolutely superb for us. And when a player goes out on loan, a full season to a championship club, which of course Norwich was last season, and do so well, getting man of the match awards week in, week out, I wasn't at all surprised. And, for them to coming back from the championship into the Premier League and giving us those performances that he has been, I'm really excited about seeing more of him. And I wouldn't be at all surprised what the former bosses have said, particularly Jose Mourinho, about Oliver Skipp being a future captain of the club.
When everybody is fit, Chris, for you, midfield-wise, does he still make the first team?
It's a question I ask every single guest of mine on my channel, and no one can answer it. I don't. A lot of people say, and I suppose I agree with it. I suppose that Højbjerg will probably step away, and Skipp will come in and play with Bentancur. But who knows? As Antonio Conte's choice, and it's a fantastic problem to have. Having decent quality players ready to come into the squad and into the starting 11.
Yeah, nicely shifted away there, Chris. Nicely dodged. Em, coming over to you. What do you think? What's the update on him from your perspective, Skipp? I mean, do you think we'll see him again this season in the Spurs shirt?
I mean, I know Conte was asked about it before, about is it best to sort of just save him, and he didn't want to, but I think it's now he doesn't look like he's getting that much closer to a return. And I don't know if it's, he was saying as well to sort of have that pre-season where he can just really, the worst thing we'd want to do is bring him back too early, and then, something goes wrong, and then it just all gets worse and goes even more downhill. Obviously I agree. I think we have missed him, but it's whether that risk is worth taking. And I don't, as far as I know, I don't think he's sort of that much closer to a return. So I think personally it would be best, as much as we do miss him, to sort of have that pre-season where he can just really work hard and have the whole summer to work hard to then come back even stronger at the start of next season. And I think this whole thing as well about, will he be in the starting 11? I think another thing that Tottenham have struggled with is the lack of quality in the squad depth. It's how good is it going to be to actually have some options where you can bring someone on in the middle of the field and not think, well, they're not really going to help. So I think whether it is Skipp and Bentancur or Højbjerg, whoever the pairing is, there'll be that other person who can come in, they can make those rotations. And I think it's only going to help when he's back. But I do think it might be best to save him for next season unless he makes a miraculous recovery.
Yeah, you know what? It's a real debate about Skipp, because I think we've seen that when he's in the team, he definitely gives Spurs another option and a player that I think we do miss, that almost forward thinking, which, to be fair, Bentancur has given us since he's arrived at the club. Mitch, for you, how keen would you be to see him almost try and be pushed into playing again this season? Or would you be in favour of saving him for next season, get a good pre-season under his belt, and then go again?
Yeah, I'd go with the latter. I feel like, the squad we have at the moment, we're already under I don't want to say tutelage, but we're already under the influence of Conte. And I feel like with these games coming up, I mean, maybe we could use him for a few games, but I feel like it would be great for him to kind of sit this one out, sit the rest of the season out, and then obviously come back in and at least be able to then be fully charged for the rest of next season. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chris, on paper, when you look at the games we've got to come, we haven't got too many options in that midfield, have we, really? We've been lucky so far, touch wood, that, Bentancur and Højbjerg, to some degree, have been ready and available to play the one game a week. But, when you look at what we've got on the bench, we need to change things in midfield. As we saw at the weekend, we are really limited there. I know, obviously, there's not Harry Winks hasn't got, a huge amount of fans out there at the moment. And that's nothing against Harry Winks. I just think where Spurs are looking to go ideally as a club, maybe for Winks, it's just come to that natural end for him. It's a difficult one because, again, as I said, you look on what we've got option-wise, would you maybe escalate Skipp coming back quicker than what we need to be?
Well, interestingly, Emma said about the squad depth, and that is something that we really, really do need to focus on in the summer. How many times have we said, year after year after year about having a backup striker or an alternative striker? Of course, we had Carlos Vinicius on loan last season, but before that, the last striker that we signed on a permanent deal was back in 2017, Fernando Llorente. It's an absolutely ridiculous stat. We need to, really work on the squad depth. But this is what really worries me in these remaining 6 games. Up until this point, I think we've done very well with injuries to key players. But, in these remaining 6 games, if we suddenly have an injury, to one of our top stars, this could be disastrous, for our push for the Champions League. But I just want to go back to your point about Harry Winks. It's interesting that as soon as we lost to Brighton, suddenly it's all Harry Winks' fault. I don't quite understand that mentality of I know some fans like players, some fans don't like certain players, but when there's a whole blame put onto 1 or 2 players constantly when we lose, I just think it's so unfair. And of course, this week, we've seen that Harry Winks has now unfollowed Tottenham official on Instagram and all these sorts of things, which I don't really like seeing. There's a lot of online hate, towards Harry Winks, which I don't really like seeing. But, going back to your question, no, we don't have enough depth. And that is something that I'm sure, other managers have tried to sort this previously, but I don't think Antonio Conte will want to go into next season, with such little depth in the squad.
So, with regards to Skipp, you mentioned that point about Winks, and it's not, I agree with you. The difficulty is with Spurs, I feel like the changes at the weekend, they weren't, how can I put this politely, that there was nothing.
The thing, I know what you're going to say, Rick, but the squad is very limited. Antonio Conte, this is why I sing the praises of Antonio Conte, because the squad, we all know, has limitations. Yeah, the squad has limitations, and what he's done with this squad and how he's improved certain players to get us into this position to be in a Champions League spot with 6 games to go, I think he's done a remarkable job. But he can only use the players he's got.
I think my argument is I'm surprised that we didn't try on the weekend to maybe bring Sessegnon on, change up a little bit. Maybe, like I say, I think that's an option where I was quite surprised unless Sessegnon was still carrying a knock. I don't know what you thought, Emma, from your perspective. Was you surprised at the weekend that we didn't try and be a bit more adventurous? It just felt a bit samey, Bentancur off for Winks. And I agree with you, Chris. I don't think any player, should be given a partial blame for it when he's only on the field for 20 minutes. He's not had a regular run of games. You just can't expect the player to come in and hit the ground running. Did it surprise you, Emma, the lack of changes at the weekend?
Yeah, I think, on Winks as well, I do think he's one of the scapegoats that, Tottenham fans have. I think there's a few players that do always blame goes to them. I do agree. I think it's such a difficult one because I agree with Chris, Conte can only work with what he's got. And when you don't have that quality in the depth of the squad and you don't have those players on the bench that you think can definitely come on and change the game, it's hard to not go with the same thing. But I do agree. I think I would have brought Sessegnon on the weekend ahead of a couple of the others because I do think, the past few games has been Bergwijn on and Moore on. And of course, we've seen them this season make an impact when they've come on. But also, why not just see what, Sessegnon's also been out with injury. And I think he needs to get his match fitness up. And I think it would have been maybe good to sort of bring him on, see what sort of flair he could bring down the left-hand side. And I think it's very difficult. And I also think, talking about bringing players in the summer and people are saying, well, they'll replace this person, but it's not just about replacing. We need players. You need squad players in your team. You need those players that, you look at other teams' benches and who they can bring on, and you look at ours, and it is that consistency because a lot of those players do come on and produce good cameos and, do make an impact as a sub, but can we have a bench full of players that, we're confident when they come on? And at the moment, I don't think we can say that.
How much does that worry you, Mitch, when you look at the squad at the moment that Spurs, we're almost relying on, if we've been honest, a core of 13, 14 players. Anything beyond that, it feels like the squad is massively stretched. I mean, is that enough between now and the end of the season, in your opinion?
I don't think so. I mean, even when I said earlier in terms of like this large stretch of games, like players will get tired mentally and physically as well. I feel like going into the next season, whether he gets backed or not, I feel like Conte is the type of manager that can, like Chris said, can win us trophies. And in order to do that, we need, like what Emma said, sorry, we need the depth in our squad. For this last stretch of games, hopefully it'll be enough. But like I said, we really need to pull up the best results that we can. So I feel like in a regular situation, it might not be enough, but yeah, I feel like we're just going to have to do with the best what we had at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I think as we all know, we talk about squad depth and where Spurs need to improve. One man we know coming back to us, well, we're going to go see him at the weekend. A player that we know very, very well, Christian Eriksen. I'm sure we'll get a wonderful reception from Chris and all those travelling away fans on Saturday. There's a certain irony, Chris, isn't there, to the fact that, with Eriksen, we've never replaced him, and yet we might be going back to sign him. What's your take on that for you, Chris? Is he a player that you'd like Spurs to explore bringing back to the club come the summer?
100%. We should have signed him in the January transfer window. I understand a number of clubs that were looking at him, but some were a little bit nervous, if you like, about signing him. But look at the impact that he has had on this Brentford team since returning to the Premier League. I absolutely adore the guy. He's one of my favourite ever Tottenham Hotspur players. Of course, a lot of us probably thought that he would never, ever play professional football again, me being one of them. Absolutely delighted to see him back, though. And as you've said, we've never, ever replaced Christian Eriksen. So why on earth have we not replaced Christian Eriksen with Christian Eriksen? It's just a no-brainer for me. And, of course, a free transfer as well, a free transfer at the end of this season. And I'm going to sell Christian Eriksen to you now. 232 Premier League appearances, 52 goals. That means that he scores one Premier League goal every 4 to 5 games, 130 wins, 28 goals with his left foot, 22 goals with his right foot, 64 assists. Now, this is the sort of player that we need in our team, and we have needed since Christian Eriksen left. And and he scored 8 free kicks as well. And of course, we always go on, on this channel, on my channel, always talking about who can score a free kick. Well, Christian Eriksen, put him back in the team. 30 years old, 6 matches this season, 1 goal, 2 assists for Brentford. I would love to see him back. And I know whenever I say this on my channel, I get lots of comments saying, no, we don't want Eriksen back. But the stats, the figures, the facts, they speak for themselves. And I just think that his connection with Antonio Conte, when you're talking about a player coming into a team and having an instant impact. He knows Tottenham. He knows half the team there. He knows Antonio Conte. The fans would absolutely adore him. It's just made. He should be returning. He's, it's a free transfer as well.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Chris, because as you say that, all the comments pour in, both the pros and the cons about Eriksen and why we should and shouldn't bring him back. And it's funny, David Clark on the screen there says, Eriksen is quality, but I'm one who will never forgive him for downing tools for the last 18 months. I've got to be honest with you, David, I don't really see it as that for me personally. I think he downed tools in those last 18 months. I just think, naturally, it felt like a lot of those players, Chris, and listen, we spoke about this often, that there was that drop-off, after Poch, where a lot of those players mentally, I think they came to the end of their tenure because they invested so much into Tottenham. Did you want to come back in there, Chris?
It's funny though, because a lot of people say he downed tools, but even though this period of downing tools, he still provided. Yeah. He still provided goals. He still provided assists. One I can remember toward the end of his Spurs career, Wolves away, floating in the corner, come on as a sub. We scored a last-minute goal, and lots of fantastic Christian Eriksen moments. But I'm talking about bringing in a real quality player, someone who can change a game. Now we talk about subs. Imagine having a game changer like that, Eriksen coming on.
Unbelievable, yeah. God, listen, how could you? I find it very difficult when you read those stats out, Chris, how any negatives could outweigh such positives for Eriksen. Emma, coming over to you. Football London, they came out today and they said that, while Eriksen did not part Spurs on the best of terms with its hierarchy, he loved the club and it's believed that he wants to remain in London. Surely Spurs is high up on his list should he want to stay in London, would you believe?
Well, yeah, I mean, I echo everything Chris just said. Not only does he know the club, he knows Conte, he knows half the players, he's making an impact at Brentford. I think the list goes on as to why, and he's free. Like, I just honestly don't know why, Tottenham wouldn't put him at near the top of the priority list, but also why he would put Tottenham at the top of his priority list. Obviously, who knows what's going to happen. But I do think, he's come back into the Premier League and he's made such an impact already. And as Chris said, yeah, as a sub, as a starter, I just think there's multiple options, if Conte does want to change up the formation. And it's like we were just saying in the Brighton game, could Conte have been a bit more adventurous with his subs? Well, Eriksen could have been that person to, come on, slightly change the formation, slightly change it up a bit. And I think, we've seen the impact that he can have on a Tottenham squad. Obviously, I know it's slightly changed, but there are a lot of the players that he does know, and I just think, yeah, it's a no-brainer really. So hopefully we're top of his priority list too.
It's interesting. Mitch, do you share the optimism and the loving to bring Eriksen back? Are you on that train?
Yeah. Even when he left, I remember when he left, a lot of Spurs fans had even you could tell with Chris as well, a lot of Spurs fans had a lot of love for Eriksen, and rightly so. Do you know what I mean? He was such a great player in the team, and rightly so again, we haven't been able to replace him. Such a player like himself, like if we were able to take him off the bench and come on, like he would make such a difference in those pivotal moments that we need changes in these next few games. So I would definitely be up for having him back in the squad. It's just a question of would he want to leave Brentford, because I feel like seems like he's at home there. He's been able to settle in so great, especially after everything that he's been through as well. I would like for him to come back. I would like for him to look at us as possibly a place that he'd like to come back to. But yeah, whether he'd made that decision, we don't know. But yeah, I'd love to have him back.
Chris, got a question on the screen here from David Clark. Says, how would Eriksen fit into Conte's system? Conte would have to tweak his team setup. I mean, we know this is a player that Conte knows really well, had him at Inter. They're coincidentally now staying in the same hotel as each other. So, I mean, I can't believe, Chris, they've not had some form of a conversation about the summer and what that looks like.
They must have had a chat. They must have had a chat or two. He even said in his press conference today that he spoke to Christian Eriksen when he signed for Brentford. And I'm sure that they've had that conversation. I just think that Christian Eriksen would love to come back to Spurs. And I just think that it would be incredible for that to happen. And I just think he would be a real game changer, as I said earlier.
I mean, Chris, I know, listen, both of us were heavily involved. Well, Last Word on Spurs and yourself, heavily involved in the All or Nothing documentary. If you go back and you reverted and watch some of those episodes and the way the Eriksen future played out so publicly on there, it did feel that there was, with the hierarchy towards the end, it did feel there's a little bit of friction there. Can that just all be resolved very simply?
Probably not, and that's probably one of the reasons why it may never happen, sadly. But I think that sometimes when you think about how Gareth Bale left as well, that was resolved and that was sorted, and that was successful. When you think Gareth Bale scored 16 goals for us last season, Christian Eriksen could have a very successful spell for Tottenham again. But I think sometimes you just need to forget some of the past, forget what's happened, and think about now. And when you're thinking about a real quality player on a free transfer, I think then Daniel Levy and the board will perhaps want to talk, because we're not going to be spending vast amounts of money.
Yeah, it's interesting, Emma. I mean, I'd say that to Chris there about bringing a player back. But I mean, Spurs under Enoch, they've got, if you look in the past, they've got history of doing this. I mean, Robbie Keane came and went, Jermaine Defoe came and went, Michel Vorm came and went, and Gareth Bale, as you've mentioned, came and went as well. And Eriksen, do you think with whatever happened to the hierarchy, and because it was so played out publicly on that All or Nothing documentary, do you still feel the club can go there and make this work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, and we don't know what happens behind closed doors. But I think, it will have to be something that's assessed. And as we've mentioned, getting a player like Eriksen on a free transfer when the quality he has, I would hope that things could be resolved and things could be ironed out, as Chris mentioned, with Bale and things. And I just think, going back to the sort of formation and the setup as well, I think as you said, Conte knows Eriksen as a player well, and he took a bit of time to settle in the Inter team. But I think there'll be options. He could play behind Kane and Son. Players could sort of convert to sort of wing back roles. Various players could, so that Eriksen can fit in. So I think, fingers crossed that things could be ironed out. I'd hope that they could, but it will sort of be a time thing, and only time will tell.
Luke even says on the screen as well, Teddy Sheringham as well, can't forget, he also came and went under Enoch, came back again. Question on the screen here from Adam McFarlane, more of a statement from Adam McFarlane on the screen here, says, Michee, Eriksen won't come back if he's on the bench. Do you think Eriksen is going to be that stubborn that wherever he goes next, he expects and demands first team football?
I would think so.
No, carry on. Carry on.
I'll come back to Ed. You go first, Mitch. I'll come back to Ed. Go for it, Mitch.
No, I'm just so passionate about it. I want to hear everything passionate about it. I don't mind. But I would think so. Emma, you can say it if you like. I don't mind. I don't mind. I would think so. Yeah, listen, he's been out of football for a minute, and to come back and, like I said, make the impact he has at Brentford. He would probably, feel like, yes, I'm able to make a difference to a team, and I believe to be, I expect to be upheld as such. So, especially Tottenham as well, he might feel like I can make a big difference, or I can help towards our quest for Champions League football. So, I would definitely feel like, I'd want to come on the bench, or depending on what type of agreement he would make with Conte, maybe for like the first few games he might be happy. First couple games, that he's back, he would be happy on the bench, and then after be looking for regular team football. I feel like that would be the most realistic scenario.
Chris, let's come around and go back. Go for it.
Can I just say, Rick, I think it would be very different as well, because Eriksen went away to Inter, won the league with Inter Milan, and I think that the second spell will feel so different. And I can't stress enough that the Spurs fans know what they can expect from him. Yeah. Conte knows what he can expect of him. And I don't think that Eriksen would be a bench player very often, because I think that he would deliver, some great performances for us. And yes, I know a lot of people will say, but he didn't deliver X, Y, and Z in the last 18 months or so, but he's still delivered in my eyes.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think what's also interesting, as Rob on the screen there says, 5 subs also next year or next season. Yeah. We're going to need free transfers. We're going to need to really bolster this squad. No matter, and I know we had to say this, whatever form of European competition Spurs do find themselves in, we're going to have a lot of games next year, regardless of what competition we find ourselves in. Do we think it's going to happen? Chris, putting your neck on the line, will it happen? Christian Eriksen back at Spurs?
No. Sadly.
You've been through all those stats. After all that. I don't think the club will sign him, which I think is a big shame. I got excited in the January transfer window, thinking that we might, he may return to us. And when he didn't in January, I thought it's not going to happen. So I would love it. I would love it to, but I don't think it's going to happen. Then I have to ask you, where do you see him going then?
Perhaps he'll stay at Brentford.
Okay, interesting. Emma, what do you reckon? Eriksen, could that happen to Spurs? Will it happen to Spurs in the summer?
I think it definitely could. Whether it will, I think again it does depend sort of what his thoughts are. If he wants to stay at Brentford as well, obviously because he's made the impact there and he would have had a good 6 months there. He might want to stay on, but I'm going to be a bit more confident than Chris. I'm a bit more hopeful that it might happen. I don't want to get too confident, because I know that never works with Spurs. But no, I definitely think it could happen. I hope it will, and hopefully, if it does, it'll be Eriksen back in N17.
Mitch, final verdict over to you. Will he be a Spurs player? Come to someone, will he be back in all Lily White?
I love how. I love how optimistic Emma is. I agree with Chris. I feel like we won't. I don't feel like we'll sign him. I feel like Brentford will obviously give him an option to stay at the club, and I don't see why he wouldn't take it and stay there for regular football.
That's interesting. I would think Christian.
What are you thinking?
Yeah,
I can't see him staying at Brentford. I think his ambition, as we've seen, the impact that he's made there. He's now started 5 matches for them he's been really influential in every single one of them. If he's not assisted, he's scored. I can't see Eriksen staying at Brentford just for the point that I think Eriksen will probably feel that he can play some form of European competition next season. I have to say maybe even Newcastle might be an attractive proposal for where they want to go in the future. But I'd be massively surprised, although Brentford have shown that loyalty to give him the contract, if he does stay there in the summer. I'd be massively surprised, and I would love to see him end up at Spurs. Purely because of all the stats Chris read out and then told me afterwards that he won't be he won't be covered. Looking forward to that.
You want a realistic answer, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I would honest as well. So at least we can't let an honest and realistic for Chris Cowlin. Fantastic. What we will do is we will go for our last break of the show for our listeners and audio. Taking this break, you're going to hear from Billy from the Besotted Bees podcast, who gives us his thoughts ahead of yet another big game for Spurs coming this weekend. For our watching audience on YouTube, thank you so much. 300, 400 of you watching us live on a Premier League evening. So thank you so much, as always, for your support. Let's start with you then. So Spurs aiming to get their top 4 charge back underway this coming Saturday evening against Brentford. It's a London derby. What do we expect going into this one?
Well, I think especially after Brighton, definitely expect a difficult game. I think Brentford only recently beaten Chelsea and West Ham. So, they can't be taken for granted. And, I was saying to you before that after Brighton, Lloris said about Brighton, they're a team that was sort of sitting around the mid-table, can enjoy the rest of the games because they're not necessarily battling for, as we are the top 4. And I think Brentford's the same. They're only a couple of positions below Brighton. They can sort of enjoy the football. It's going to be at their home ground, under the lights. They're going to have all the support behind them. And I think it's going to be a very difficult game. And I think, if Tottenham, if the Brighton game kind of been a bit of a blip and Tottenham can go back to the performances they were producing before that, then I do think that we can get the 3 points, but it's just whether that can happen. And I just definitely think you can't go into it taking anything for granted, being complacent at all, because it's definitely going to be a very hard battle. Yeah,
it's interesting you say that. In the comments here, there's lots of already incoming pain, lots of frustration already. I mean, coming over to you, Mitch, Brentford coming into this game, they're 11th in the Premier League table now. Many will probably feel that they've almost secured their safety, all bar a couple of points. So they're in a situation where, similar to Brighton, they can approach the game with a real freedom and they can express the way they want to play without really having to be too rigid and fully focused in terms of having to stay to a game plan, with the concern of Spurs really cutting them open. How do you see Brentford approaching this one for you, Mitch?
I feel like, in relation to what you said, as far as that they might feel like they're close, they've reached safety. I feel like they might even, in all honesty, I feel like they'll go 100% and try to get the 3 points, because obviously, even though it looks that way, I mean, referring back to what Chris said, the Premier League is so unpredictable. You never really know what's going to happen one week or the other. And I'm not saying obviously nothing's going to happen to them to get them relegated, but they want to feel like, okay, we want to finish the season on a high. So let's go in with these next few games, as do we do. So as we do, sorry. I feel like they'll come in with 100%, and knowing that it is a derby, a London derby, sorry. It's going to be a real intense game. That's just how I think it will be.
I mean, Chris, coming over to you, we're going to need to start a lot faster than what we started, of course, against Brighton. But I thought what's interesting is that Brentford, they actually play a very compact style of football, and they are very well drilled to soak up any kind of pressure. I mean, we saw Brighton use that tactic very well at Spurs at the weekend, where if they keep that same formula, so the likes of Son, Kane and Kulusevski can keep them at bay, we could be in for yet another difficult afternoon/evening. How do you see this one playing out, Chris? Because Arsenal would have played beforehand, and we know United at the moment, although today they've appointed Erik ten Hag, we don't know how much of a lift that's going to give them, because United are so unpredictable at the moment. There's going to be a lot of pressure going into this game for Tottenham, you feel, regardless of whatever happens at Arsenal or during that game earlier in the day.
I think that Arsenal will win against Manchester United. So, of course, we're then going to be 3 points behind them going into this game, which, of course, Antonio Conte has spoke about pressure a number of times in the last few weeks. And, if we do have that pressure, it's how we cope with it. And, hopefully we're going to pick up the 3 points. But with that said, Brentford have had some fantastic performances in their first season in the Premier League. Only a couple of weeks ago, beating Chelsea 4-1 at Stamford Bridge. You know, we've only won there once in the Premier League since 1992. And the way that they beat West Ham United a week or two ago as well. Earlier on in the season, they had a good victory against Arsenal at home. I think that was their first home game in the Premier League. So they've had some really, really good results. But Tottenham, you know, in the first 10 minutes, I think that we'll know what sort of performance that we're going to get and what sort of result we're going to get. You know, it was a worry in that first half against Aston Villa, how many chances Aston Villa had, even though we won that game 4-0, you know, scoring 3 in the second half. But going back to the push for the top 4, when we beat Newcastle 5-1 and of course beat Aston Villa 4-0, that could be absolutely huge. You know, goal difference. You know, it could go down to goal difference. You know, right at the end of the season. But all we need to do, and I'm going to say these famous words, all we need to do is match Arsenal's results, you know, until the end of the season, and we will go through on goal difference. But I just think Saturday, I know we're going to probably come down to predictions. I think Saturday is going to be a very, very difficult game.
It's interesting. I mean, coming over to you, 15 points from the last 18 on offer Brentford have taken. You know, they've firmly cemented their standing now as mid-table. And you just feel they're only 2 points off Leicester. And that's a place in the top 10. I mean, they've been really impressive over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And you just feel for them now, Eriksen as well, coming to the fore. I think they're going to really enjoy the game, Emma, rather than going and fearing playing Spurs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And this is what I mean. This is why they can't be taken for granted. And, you know, we can't go into it being complacent. And I agree. I do think, you know, they're going to go into it, a home game. They know they've beaten some of the top teams this season. They're going to enjoy the game. They have the fans behind them. And it's just whether sort of Tottenham can sort of overcome that and sort of quiet them down. And, you know, that's why I think going into it, as Chris said, the first 10 minutes, I think we'll know how it's going to pan out. I think if we can get an early goal and get on top quickly, I think that's going to be crucial. And I just think it's all now down to hopefully the players can turn up and produce some of the good performances that they have already this season. But I do think, yeah, Brentford have proven that they're not a team to be taken lightly or for granted.
Agree. Mitch, I mean, they've had 3 clean sheets in their last 4 games at home. You know, they're only behind Chelsea in terms of London Derby points won this season, which again is really impressive from them. How do you see, Mitch, Spurs lining up? Do you think we'll make a couple of changes in there? I mentioned to Chris earlier that personally for me, I would have liked to see Sessegnon come on against Brighton. Would you like to see him start the game maybe in place of Reguilon at the weekend?
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah, I feel like to relate back to what Emma said as well, I think we might need that flair. We might need that flair in the squad. And yeah, I'll be excited. I'm excited to see the changes that he makes. But I feel like, yeah, we need to go in. We need to start the game fast. I think one of the people said it here in the comments as well. We definitely need to start the game with 100% and try to secure a couple of the goals and pretty much just go in cruise control from there, to be fair.
Chris, I know obviously team news divides many people's opinions. What changes would you like to see or what changes would you like, Chris, to be made? You know, when we look at comparatively that Brighton game, would you looking to make any changes at all?
I actually agree with you, and I never ever thought I'd say this season, but I hope that Sessegnon does come in for Sergio Reguilon. I think that he has been much better than Sergio Reguilon. I don't quite know what's happened to Reguilon in these last this season actually. Yeah. I do feel that we are a little bit weak on you know, both full-backs, and I hope that Antonio Conte and Spurs you know, do address that in the summer. That definitely needs sorting because the wing backs are so important to our formation, to our game, the way that we play our formation. You know, so we need 2 really, really decent fullbacks. But I think that will be the only change. You know, this team at the moment is picking itself. And as I said earlier, I just hope that we don't pick up any injuries from now until the end of the season because, you know, the front 3, I don't know, we've been going for nearly an hour now. None of us have mentioned Kulusevski in the way that he has played, you know, so far this season, fitting in with Heung-min Son and Harry Kane. They've been absolutely brilliant, you know, for this push to the top 4. But that is the only change that I could see making. And the other thing is if we are chasing the game, we do need a goal. I hope that Steven Bergwijn does get a few more minutes because
Have you been
these
surprised,
games like
Chris, that he's not come on as sorry to interrupt you there. Have
yeah,
you been surprised, Chris, that he hasn't come on as the first
yeah.
up as opposed to Lucas? Because I mean, at the weekend, Lucas just frustrates me so much. I don't know,
Well,
like I said, it's just me. Yeah.
we talk about game changers, and we talk about fantastic moments and fantastic. It's a real turning point, I think, this season. Leicester away, to win that game, the way that Steven Bergwijn won it in those dying seconds, like the Ajax moment, but not so good. But it was a fantastic night, and I'm surprised since then he hasn't got more minutes. We want game changers, we want a goal scorer, and Steven Bergwijn is very capable. So I just hope that he gets more minutes. So if we are chasing the game 10, 20 minutes to go, or even 30 minutes to go, give him some time, because you can't expect someone to come on with, 5 minutes to go. And I suppose that's my only real little criticism of Antonio Conte, that he's not using some players to their maximum ability, because I've no doubt that Bergwijn will probably want to leave in the summer for that reason, not having enough game time. Certainly when these players go off on international duty, they play, they score, they assist, and then, of course, they come back to Spurs, and then you get a couple of minutes at the end of a match when we're really chasing it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you completely on that. Emma, coming over to you. Do you still see or expect Emerson Royale to keep his place on that right-hand side of the defence, or will Spurs try and change it up a little bit, to the point of maybe even looking to bring Bergwijn in as an inverted right wing back, or dare I say even push Kulusevski back there? Can you see that being an option? Would you see Conte making such a... It would be quite a dramatic change, bearing in mind how consistent he's been with his selection of Emerson since February.
Yeah, I think my simple answer is I would keep Royal there. I think I haven't, I think there's a lot of debate around whether, he needs more time or whether he just isn't going to sort of improve. But I just think bringing Kulusevski back, I don't think would be a good idea. He's doing so well alongside Son and Kane, and to sort of change that now, it's sort of like, why fix something that's not broken? I think, Bergwijn is an option, but you've obviously got that where Emerson, isn't doing as well on the attacking front. Would Bergwijn do enough on the defensive front? And I think, again, we've seen how consistent Conte's been with his lineups, apart from the rotations due to injury. So, I don't think Royal isn't necessarily making the required impact on the right, but as it stands, I kind of feel like he's got to stay there. And just on Bergwijn, I do agree. I think he needs to come on a lot earlier. I'm a fan of Moura, but I think I was looking at it before, and I think it's the last 6 games, Moura's either come on before or at the same time as Bergwijn. And I just think, as we spoke about the Leicester game and, other games he's come on and made an impact as a sub, I just think he does need to be given more time. And I also think going into next season, as you said, whatever European competition we're in, there's going to be a lot more games. People like Bergwijn are the players we're going to need to rotate. And if you don't give him the game time, he's not going to want to stay. So I think I would keep Emerson at right wing back, but I would bring on Bergwijn earlier if needs be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
What European competition will that be though, Emma?
I don't want to say anything.
We'll leave that one for the post-mortem. We most certainly will.
At least if we don't...
So go on, Mitch.
Yeah, but at least if we don't... to make a reference to Chris's what European competition would that be in? I mean, I just want to ask you guys, do you feel like, will you be happy with Europa League if we do, if we don't get Champions League? Would you be happy with Europa League? I mean, it's better than Conference League, I guess.
Chris, I'm muted first, so you can go first on the buzzer. Go on, Chris.
Do you know what? Seriously, I think that Antonio Conte is way further ahead than what he thought he would be. I don't think that he thought that we would be anywhere near Champions League. So I think that he would have been very happy with a Europa League spot. And when we talk about club direction, as long as we are going back in the right direction, of course, it was a massive come down this season to play Europa Conference League. But I think if we went into the Europa League with Antonio Conte next season, I think that we'd be favourites, like we were favourites for the Europa Conference League this season. Of course, we end up getting chucked out of the competition. But Conte in the Europa League, it sounds quite tasty.
Well, listen, I think, again, the attraction of Europa League football, I want to give an attraction to it. You can actually get through to the Champions League by winning it. That's a route that you can do. But I think everyone at Spurs will be fully focused on these next, 6 remaining games now. Champions League, because we've got into that position now, I think we'd all feel we'd be devastated now to not make it because Spurs have got themselves into that position. Mitch, it's prediction time. Let's come to you first. Give us your prediction ahead of the game, Mitch. What are you going to go for?
Hate prediction time. I'm going to say 2-1 to us.
2-1
and
Spurs.
I'll like a late minute win, a late game winner. That's how. Yeah,
Okay.
2-1 Spurs.
Interesting, a late game winner. Fantastic. Okay, let's come to you. What are you going to go for?
I'm also going to go 2-1. And I think we might go behind to start with.
Yeah.
And then come back. I mean, I just hope whatever happens, we just get the 3 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs. I agree, though. I can see us going behind early on, but coming back to win. I just feel the quality at the end of the game will see us through. Chris, you're going to be there. And I know you're going to be doing a show straight after as well, knowing you. So give us your prediction, what you're going to go
for. You'll probably be surprised by this, but I'm actually going to go for a draw. I'm really hoping that we win, but I think it's going to be such a difficult game. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, but I'm really hoping and praying that we win.
And what you said earlier is you expect Arsenal to beat Manchester United earlier in the day, in your opinion?
Yeah. I think the North London derby could ultimately decide who finishes in the top 4. I really do.
Okay. Well, we shall wait to see. We really shall. Mitch, it's been lovely having you on Last Word on Spurs this evening. Mitch, where can we find you across the socials? Please let us know.
Instagram, Michee_artist. Twitter, Michee_artist as well. YouTube, Michee Artist. And yeah, got a lot of music and got my EP dropping this summer. So hopefully Tottenham doesn't ruin these next few next few games, the next few weeks towards the season, and then I'll be good to enjoy my summer. But yeah, that's where you can find me, guys.
Amazing. Pleasure having you back on, Mitch. And thankfully, it's not been for a Europa Conference League night, although many might have been favouring that if it was a final. So listen, we'll leave that one up for debate. Been pleasure having you back on. Emma, loving your work over at Football London. Where can we find you and all the crew over there?
Yeah, all stuff on football.london, me, Ali and Rob, and on Twitter at Emma_DeDuve. And thanks for having me on. It's been a great show.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Always flying, always great. And we're hoping for the right end to the season. And one man that's going to steer you through, thick or thin, unfortunately not trophies, but it will feel like a trophy if Spurs do achieve the full spot, will be Chris Cowlin, guiding you along that way with wonderful content, live shows and all. Chris, where can we find your wonderful YouTube channel?
Surely the trophies must be coming soon, Rick.
Well, mate, honestly, for how long you've done it for, they've got to be coming soon.
They've got to be coming soon. My God, if they don't come under Antonio Conte, then what? Then what? You haven't
Let's not.
Can't even think and comprehend where we're going to be going from there if it's not under Antonio. I tell you, but the mood, Chris, as well, it is under Conte. It just feels like under Poch, there is something happening. I'm sure you probably agree with that as well, right? It does feel back to those early days under Pochettino where fans are getting excited again.
That's very true. Going to all the games, the fans are so much, happier now, excited. That mood is back. Of course, the blip against Brighton on Saturday, but hopefully we can turn it around this Saturday. But in answer to your question, yes, run a YouTube channel called Tottenham Fan Chris Cowlin. So if you don't know of that, check it out. And lots of content, daily content.
Amazing. Love it, Chris. Thank you so much. Love having you back on. I know you'll be back on with us before the end of the season, so really looking forward to that. Well, guys, from Emma, from Michee, from Chris, myself, guys, keep safe, keep well. Big game on Saturday. And as always,